Judi Dench and Maggie Smith were the kind of legends people gossip about in hushed tones, two pillars holding up half a century of British acting. But here's the twist you won't see in award show montages. They rarely spoke publicly about what they were to each other. And then, when grief finally broke the silence, Judi let the truth slip. The bond wasn't just professional, it was shelter, steel, and something close to a vow. When Maggie passed, the space she left wasn't just quiet, it was seismic. You could feel it in the pause between Judi's words, the way a room goes still when a great bell stops ringing. Before the ovations and the medals, Maggie Smith was Margaret Natalie Smith from Ilford, Essex, the youngest of three in a steady, middle-class home. Her dad was a pathologist, her mum a Scottish-born secretary with a fierce practical streak. War clouds gathered, the family moved to Oxford, and by accident or fate, Maggie ended up in the very city where language and stagecraft sit on every bookshelf and street corner. At Oxford High School, she wasn't the noisy one. She watched, she listened, she stored up power. 16 came, and she couldn't wait any longer. She left formal schooling for the Oxford Playhouse, learning the bones of theater voice, blocking, breath, the tiny muscle that lifts a line from decent to devastating. At 17, she walked out as Viola in Twelfth Night, not as a schoolgirl playing dress-up, but as someone who'd already chosen her life. Next stop, Radha. Her audition? Unpolished brilliance, raw, magnetic, impossible to ignore. By the late 50 seconds, Maggie stepped onto the stage that breaks you, or makes you, the old Vic. Desdemona, Viola again, Cleopatra roles that demand both finesse and thunder. Critics clocked something rare, restraint with a fuse. She could let emotion simmer so low you barely noticed until it cut. Soon, she was in the orbit of Laurence Olivier and the early National Theatre. Admiration, yes, harmony, not always. Maggie's wit and spine met Olivier's volcanic force, and sometimes sparks flew. Yet that friction sharpened her. She wasn't there to be overshadowed. She was there to stand her ground and let the work speak with her name on it. Film noticed, in Nowhere to Go, 1958, she caught a BAFTA nod. In The V, IPS, 1963, she held her own among giants. And then came the role that detonated, Jean Brodie in The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie. It's the kind of part actors dream about and dread: brilliant, charming, and dangerous. Maggie didn't blink. She made Brodie magnetic and unsettling, a teacher who molds minds and breaks them. The Oscar for Best Actress followed in 1970. Later, in California Suite, 1978, she braided acid humor with bruised tenderness and added a second Academy Award, this time supporting. But the impact was the same. She could do comedy with a scalpel and drama with a heartbeat. The applause, though, was never the full story. In her private life, Maggie knew storms. Her first marriage to Robert Stevens burned hot and messy. Talent like his often came with turbulence. The split hurt. 2 sons, Chris Larkin and Toby Stevens, needed steady ground, and Maggie became that ground. Then came a love that endured. Playwright Beverly Cross, the man who had once loved her from afar, and finally, blessedly, found the timing to match the feeling. They married in 1975 and stayed tethered until his death in 1998. It anchored her. So did her courage, when illness tried to rob her of momentum: Graves's disease in the 80 Seconds, then breast cancer during the shoot of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Even under chemo, she showed up, said the line, found the truth. If you needed a definition of grit, you could point and say, there. Then, the world met her twice over. First, as Professor Minerva McGonagall, a single lifted eyebrow that could silence a dining hall and still feel like a hug. For an entire generation, she was the grammar of courage. Not loud, not flashy, just immovable. Soon after, she became Violet Crawley, the Dowager Countess of Grantham in Downton Abbey, delivering one-liners so sharp you could hang curtains on them. But behind the barbs was a well of tenderness. 3 Emmys, a Golden Globe, the lot, sure. More important, a second wave of global love, teenagers and grandparents quoting the same lines at dinner, and weaving through all of it stage boards, camera lenses, dressing rooms, and curtain calls was Judi Dench. They met young, they competed without cruelty, teased without malice, and built a friendship unlikely to survive gossip but too honest to be broken by it. Film put them side by side in A Room with a View, Tea with Mussolini, Ladies in Lavender, The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. Theater bound them even tighter in David Hare's The Breath of Life. Watch them together in Nothing Like a Dame, and you'll see it. The glances, the timing, the affection that doesn't need an explanation. People love to invent a rivalry. Judi would roll her eyes and say she couldn't do half of what Maggie could. Maggie would land a joke so dry it might crumble in your hand. The truth? They were mirrors and shelter to each other. Proof that you could be great without being lonely. And then the day came when the applause couldn't touch the ache. Maggie died, and Judi, who has always been brave about the truth, let herself break a little in public. She tried to speak about grief, and her voice simply stopped. That's how you know it's real. Not the tears, but the silence. Back home in Surrey, Judi did what she does for the ones she loves. She planted a tree in her private memorial forest, a crabapple for Maggie. On the day of the funeral, her gardener placed a single crabapple in Judi's hand. She slipped it into her pocket and carried it through the service. Not a grand gesture, just a small, perfect act of loyalty. A weight you can hold, a friend you can keep close for one more day. Here's the part we don't talk about enough. Legacy isn't just statues and speeches. It's what your friends carry when the music stops. Maggie Smith left us the roles Jean, Brodie, McGonagall, and the Dowager. But the greatest proof of who she was might be the way Judi Dench speaks her name softly, like a secret you don't want the wind to steal. That is love. That is testimony. Now, over to you. What's the first performance that flashes in your mind when you hear Maggie Smith? Is it the strict kindness of Minerva, the volcanic intelligence of Jean Brodie, or a single raised eyebrow from Violet Crawley that says more than a page of dialogue ever could? Maybe it's something earlier, a line at the Old Vic, a memory from a film your parents loved. However you remember her, say it out loud. Stories keep people here a little longer. If this moved you, if you felt that tug in the chest for a friendship that outlived spotlights and schedules, stick around. There are more stories where craft meets courage, where talent meets tenderness, and where legends are still, somehow, human. Like, share, and subscribe if you want more of that, more truth told plainly, more hearts held gently. And, in the comments, drop your favorite Maggie Smith moment. Tonight, let's make the internet feel like a theater lobby after a standing ovation, buzzing, grateful, and just a little reluctant to go home.